You can work for 40 years, waking up a little earlier than everyone else, leaving a little later, pushing yourself just a little more each day, and one day, when you look back, you're still standing exactly where you started. Not because you're not good enough, not because you lack effort, but because, from the very beginning, you were taught a version of this game that was polished, but not real. Growing up, we're all taught a very simple formula. Work hard and you'll move up. Do well and you'll be given authority. Just stay consistent, stay persistent, and everything will come to you eventually. It sounds logical, it sounds fair, but if you've been working long enough, you'll start to feel like something doesn't quite add up. You'll see people who do less than you, yet they're the ones making decisions about your work. You'll see major changes happen, entire projects shifting direction, entire companies changing strategy, and you have no idea where it even started. You only receive the final outcome, as if it just appeared out of nowhere. And that feeling, it's strange. Like you're playing a game, but there are rules no one ever told you about. Before we go any further, take a quick second to subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss the next videos. The deeper we go, the more this will start to make sense for you. Alright, now let's continue. Because the truth is, real power doesn't exist in what you can see. It's not on the organizational chart, it's not in job titles. It exists in much more invisible layers, where information isn't equally shared, where relationships can change outcomes in minutes, and where the rules of the game were shaped long before you even realized you were part of it. And what makes it even harder is that most people don't even know where they stand within that system. If you're somewhere between 25 and 45, there's a very high chance you've believed in a familiar formula. Do your job well, hit your targets, don't make mistakes, don't cause trouble, and then promotion will come. It sounds reasonable, it sounds fair, and it's exactly what gives so many people a sense of comfort in their early working years. But then there comes a moment, quietly, where things start to feel off. You look around, you see people who don't perform better than you, don't work harder than you, not even more seriously than you. Yet somehow, they move further than you. They show up in meetings you're not invited to. They know about changes before you're informed at the very last minute, when everything is already decided. And then one day, the position you thought, I will definitely get, goes to them. At that moment, your first instinct is usually to question yourself. What am I missing? Skills? Experience? Or maybe I just haven't worked hard enough? But the more you think about it, the more you realize the answer isn't there. Imagine someone, the kind of person everyone believes will succeed. Always the last one to leave the office. The one who double-checks everything. His reports are nearly flawless. When problems arise, people go to him first because they know it will get solved. But when a real opportunity comes, a higher position, a clear step forward, someone else is chosen. That person isn't more outstanding, doesn't work more, but that person is always there at the right time. In conversations not everyone gets to be part of. In relationships the other person doesn't have. And that alone creates a completely different outcome. That's when a truth begins to surface, quietly, not obvious, but enough to make you stop and think. Advancement doesn't actually work the way you think. It's not simply a reward for doing your job well. It's the result of how deeply you are connected to the system, what you know before others do, where you are present before things are made public, and who you are close to when decisions begin to take shape. When you don't see this, everything looks random. Some people go up, some go down. Some are lucky, some aren't. But once you start paying closer attention, you begin to see a pattern. The people who move forward aren't always the most capable. They're the ones at the right layer, at the right time. And that's when you start to understand this is not a straight path. It's not about climbing step by step until you reach the top. This is a system with multiple layers of power. Each layer operates under its own rules, its own logic. And if you don't know where you are, then no matter how hard you try, you're still playing the wrong game. But this is exactly where most people get stuck. They try to climb faster, do more, push harder, instead of stopping to understand the map. At the first layer, you are the executor. Everything here is clear. Work comes from above. You receive it, You execute it, you optimize it. You try to do it faster, better, more accurately every day. You learn how to manage your time. You learn how to avoid mistakes. You learn how to become reliable. And you believe that if you're good enough, if you're consistent enough, sooner or later, you'll be invited into bigger decisions. There was someone who did all of that perfectly. Nothing missing, always exceeding KPIs, clean reports, early deadlines. When something difficult came up, he was the first person people thought of. But then, there was an important meeting where the direction of the entire project was decided, and he wasn't there. Not because he wasn't good enough, not because he didn't deserve it, but simply because his role was never meant to be part of the decision. That realization is uncomfortable when you see yourself doing so much, yet having no voice. And that's when you understand something difficult. At this layer, your value is measured by what you produce. Output, results, not by your level of influence. You can perform exceptionally well and still be outside the game. And this is where most people stop. They try to do even better, do more, move faster, but they don't realize they are still standing in the same place. But if you slow down for a moment and start observing more carefully, you'll begin to notice something else happening beneath the surface. And that's when you move into another layer, the layer of those who read signals. Here, things are no longer just about the work. You begin to notice small things that aren't random. A meeting suddenly rescheduled without a clear reason. An email sent at 11 p.m. A short comment before the official meeting even begins. Things you used to ignore now start to carry meaning. There was someone who came across an email, not an official one, just a brief exchange, but from that, he understood that the project would change direction in about 2 weeks. While everyone else kept working on the old plan, he started adjusting quietly. No one noticed, no one asked, but he prepared in advance. And when the change actually happened, he didn't need to react. He was already there. That's the advantage of knowing early. Not because you're smarter, but because you're one step ahead. And in any system, being just one step ahead is already a massive advantage. But then you realize, knowing is still not enough. You can see what's coming, but you still don't control the final outcome. And that's when you begin to go deeper. You step into the layer of those who coordinate. At this level, you're no longer just working. You begin to see how work actually moves. Who works fast, who works slow, who consistently meets deadlines, who tends to create bottlenecks. Things you never paid attention to before now start to become data in your mind. You're no longer just receiving tasks. You begin to reorganize how they get done. There was a project once described as a very strong idea. The documents looked great. The plan was clear. Everyone thought it would succeed. But then it failed. Not because the idea was wrong, but because the execution was handled by the wrong person. The person selected was capable. No one denied that. But they weren't fast enough, not flexible enough, not aligned with the pace the project required. Meanwhile, there was someone else, less impressive on the surface, but far quicker at solving problems. That person wasn't chosen. And the result? Everything slowed down. The opportunity slipped away, and the project slowly collapsed, even though on paper, it was perfect. That's when you begin to understand something you never considered before. Power doesn't come from doing your job well. It comes from deciding who does the job. And when it gets done, you begin to influence the flow of work, not through title, but through understanding. You know who to assign things to, who to avoid, where to accelerate, where to slow down. And gradually, more and more things start passing through you. But then, you begin to notice another limitation. No matter how well you coordinate, you're still not the final decision maker. There are things you simply cannot change on your own. And that's when you move up again, into the layer of those who connect. Here, everything shifts. You no longer start with how, you start with who. Who can open this door? Who can move this forward faster? Who can solve something that the formal system would take weeks to handle? You begin to understand that some problems don't need process. They just need the right person. There are things that, if you follow the process, take 2 weeks, but if you call the right person, they're solved in 2 minutes. Not because the process is wrong, but because the system always revolves around people. And when you have enough relationships, you're no longer limited by how the system is supposed to work. You start operating based on how it actually works. That's when you realize a truth many people don't want to accept. Relationships are not a small advantage. They are a form of power. It's not about who knows more people. It's about who can get a response when it matters. But then, you start to realize something even rarer than having connections. It's the ability to decide who gets connected to whom. And when you reach that point, you step into a completely different layer. The layer of those who control access. Here, you're no longer just connecting. You begin filtering. Information doesn't go directly where it's supposed to go. It goes through you. Opportunities are the same. You begin to notice that some things disappear before they even have the chance to exist. There was a proposal once considered very strong, clear, full of potential, capable of creating significant results. But it never reached the decision table. Not because it lacked value, but because it didn't pass through the right person, not at the right time, or simply, it wasn't prioritized. And so, it disappeared. No one rejected it, no one argued against it. It simply didn't exist. That's when you understand something deeply important. Real power does not lie in making decisions. It lies in deciding what gets presented to be decided. You control what others get to see. You control what gets prioritized. And once you control that, you begin to control outcomes themselves. And from here, everything starts to change. When the flow of opportunity passes through you, money begins to follow. Not because you chase money, but because money always follows where opportunities are selected. And at even higher layers, things become surprisingly simple. It's no longer about tasks, no longer about processes, no longer about who does what each day. It comes down to just two things: capital and people. Who gets funded? Who gets the opportunity? Who gets chosen to lead? These decisions are no longer small. They shape the outcome of an entire project, a company, even an entire industry. And that's when you realize one final truth, one that, if you don't see it, will always make things feel unfair. Good ideas don't always win. Talented people aren't always chosen. What wins is what the system trusts. And that system always operates through layers that most people never get to see. If this made you see things differently, then don't just watch and move on. Take a second to subscribe, because the next videos will break down exactly how to move between these layers in the real world. And if you've ever felt stuck in your career without knowing why, leave a comment and share your situation. Sometimes, just putting it into words is the first step to seeing the system more clearly.